In my last video, I started printing and assembling a life-size articulated Grogu made from free STL files that I found online. Now it's time to finish and paint the head, ears, hands, and feet, make and add the eyes, and make Grogu some clothes. Hey everyone, Danny here with Vader Dad Builds. I've been both excited and nervous about making this video. Usually I like to put one thing in my videos that I haven't tried before, but this time I'm doing three things that are new to me: airbrushing, making resin eyes, and making Grogu's clothes. But I'm also really excited to show you how he turns out, so let's get started. The only parts I needed to finish were the head, ears, hands, and feet. I start by applying a Bondo spot putty. For curved areas like this, I like to use a piece of EVA foam to apply the putty. The prints came out great, so I only had to smooth out a few areas where the angles were almost horizontal and the layer lines were much more visible. After the spot putty dries, I use a 400 grit sandpaper to sand it down. Next, I apply primer to the prints. This will help the paint stick, and it also makes it easier to check for any imperfections when it's one solid color. I'm using an airbrush to paint these parts. First, I start by mixing a base color. I will use green, blue, and white to make the base color. I'm using a mix of about 60% green and 40% blue. Then I start adding the white to lighten it. Once I'm happy with the color, I use an airbrush paint thinner to get the right consistency. You want a consistency like skim milk. If it's too thick, you may get clogs or splatters. But you also don't want the paint to be too thin and watery. I start with the base coat over the whole front and back of the head. This is my first time airbrushing. Hopefully it's not too obvious here. Make sure to use a decent airbrush. This is the third one I've tried, and by far it's the best. The other two were cheap and clogged very easily. After the base coat is dry, I use a darker shade of the green and blue mix to add some depth. Then last I add some pink around the eyes, mouth, and cheeks. The paint was very shiny, so I also added a matte varnish to finish it off. Here's the finished head. Let me show you the detail up close. Now the ears. I use the same base coat as I did for the head, and spots of the darker shade of green after it dries. For the inside of the ear, I will be mixing a few colors. I start with the yellow shade. Then I gradually add some pink to the yellow, and last I add some red to the mix. And here are the finished ears. I really love how these turned out. Let me show you it up close. Here's the gradient on the inside of the ears. Last parts to paint are the hands and feet. I start with the same base color and the darker green. For the nails, I mix yellow and white and add a touch of brown. Then I add more brown to the mix to finish it off. And here are the finished hands and feet. Let me show you up close the detail on the nails. I wanted to make resin eyes, so I needed to hollow out the eyes from the original file. I deleted the eyes and mainly used the extrude and scale tools in Blender to do this. To make the eyes, I'm going to use resin. I got a set of sphere molds that included multiple sizes. I ended up using a 40mm size. First, I pour 4 milliliters of resin. To help soften it and make it easier to mix, I put it in the microwave for 7 seconds. Then I add 4 milliliters of the hardener. I mix it slowly for 2.5 minutes. Then I speed it up in editing for this video. I pour the mixed resin into the molds and let them cure for 24 hours. Now that they are cured, I can add the pupil and iris. To do this, I created some images and printed them out. I put a link to my images in the video description if you want to use them. I put packing tape on the front and back of the sheet to protect the image and paper. Then I cut out the circles for the eyes. And then place them in the molds. I make another mix of resin and hardener, then pour it into the mold. And then I let it cure for another 24 hours. I take the eyes out of the molds. I have to say, these things look awesome. And the last step is to paint the back of the eyes white. There are different methods to making resin eyes. I thought this method was easy to do, and I'm very happy with how they turned out. Now that I got everything painted and the eyes are ready, I'm going to go ahead and glue them in. Now for a very important decision. Do I put the eyes on the inside or outside? I think I'll go with the inside for these. I want to make sure I don't make them cross-eyed, so I position the eye in place and then tape it down. Then I do the same for the other eye. I use a hot glue to glue it in place. I make sure to use enough glue here because once the head is glued, it'll be a problem if the eyes come loose. I'm definitely happy with how these turned out. Now I can finish the assembly. I will start with the feet. I put the feet in place, then push in the pins. They can be difficult to push in. I just need to do some sanding on the joints and pins to get everything to fit. Now the hands. I put them in place and then hold them in with the pins. And finally the head. I add some support to hold the back of the head in place. Now I glue in the ear pins. Now I add glue to the back of the head, making sure not to get too close to any of the movable parts. I place the ears and push the head together. I'm almost done now, he just needs some clothes. I got a linen fabric and some fleece to make his clothes. I put affiliate Amazon links for these materials in the description. For the clothes, I looked through reference photos to figure out the best way to make Grogu's Jedi robe. I noticed this sleeve here, so I'll start by making him an undershirt, which will also give me some more practice before making the robe. I also take some measurements, but I'm not worrying about it being too precise. I'm pretty much going to eyeball it. I cut out 2 sleeves, 1 piece for the front and 2 pieces for the back. Since his head and ears are so big, I'll leave the back open. Here's the finished shirt, maybe a bit lopsided, but it'll work. For the robe, I cut out 2 sleeves, 1 piece for the back and 2 for the front. I sew everything together. I had a button maker, so I'll use buttons to hold together the front. Velcro would also work well for this. Now I cut out some of the fleece for the sleeves and collar. I sew that to the robe. I also used some fabric tape in some areas that were more difficult to sew or I didn't want any visible seams. Here he is, a fully articulated life-size Grogu. The files used in this video were made by the Kit Cave, and I rate the files a 10 out of 10. I love how he turned out and how poseable he is. You can move his arms, legs, body, and head, and even his ears move up and down. This was such a fun project, and I'm really happy with how he turned out. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and check this out next. Thank you for watching.